Good evening and welcome to NTD News. I'm Stephanie Cox. Here are today's top stories. President Biden meeting with the UK's Prime Minister and King Charles ahead of a high-stakes NATO summit. How Russia is responding to the latest calls by Ukraine to join NATO and how China comes into play. A green light for Sweden. Turkey has approved the Nordic nation's request to join NATO. Why is Turkey changing its mind, and what did Sweden do to help? The Biden administration starts a new process, allowing thousands of immigrants to enter the U.S. more easily. But critics argue it bends the law. A divided Congress facing the ultimate test this week, spending bills. Plus, high-profile hearings with Biden administration officials. We're looking at a packed session. And extreme heat is battering southwestern United States. And the New England region suffers from flash floods. Tens of millions of Americans are under weather warnings. President Biden kicking off the first full day of his trip to Europe with a visit to London. And that's as more intense talks on Ukraine will unfold tomorrow at the NATO summit in Lithuania. Joining us now with more is NTD's White House correspondent Iris Tao in the capital of that country. Iris, what's the latest?
Earlier tonight, President Biden landed here in Vilnius, Lithuania. He was greeted by the Lithuanian president as well as embassy staff and their families. But before coming here for the NATO summit slated for tomorrow, President Biden spent his whole day in the United Kingdom, meeting with King Charles for the first time after the king was crowned. And President Biden also held bilateral talks and drank tea with the British Prime Minister Rishi Sunak. The two reaffirmed U.S. and UK ties.
Well, Joe, welcome. It's great to have you here. Back in Downing Street. I think you've been here a few times before, I know, but your first time as president. So we're very privileged and fortunate to have you here. Thanks for coming.
But while the two leaders were all smiles on camera, there were issues that they actually disagreed on during their meeting. For example, Washington last week announced that they would send Ukraine cluster bombs, which have been banned by over 100 countries, including the UK. And a Sunak spokesperson said today that the two leaders did raise this issue during their meeting today. And we do expect to hear more from both President Biden and other world leaders in the coming days about their stances on it. And besides that, we know that a big topic surrounding this NATO summit would be whether or not, or really how and when, to admit Ukraine into the NATO alliance. So President Biden has explicitly said that he would not support an admission of Ukraine into the NATO alliance during this time period because it is at war with Russia. But we are also hearing a response from Russia today, which said that any Ukrainian membership in NATO would be deemed as a major threat that would prompt a harsh response. And of course, as Western leaders gather here in Vilnius, we know that a top Russian official also visited China on Monday and met with China's Xi Jinping. And basically after the meeting, the official said that, quote, Russia can count on a firm and friendly, reliable shoulder in China. So a lot is on the plate here as both threats from China and from Russia are on the rise. And of course, remains to be seen how Western leaders, including President Biden, in his major speech slated for Wednesday night, will address these issues on the world stage here in Vilnius. Steph.
All right, and next, more on the NATO summit. Turkey has finally given its approval to Sweden's NATO membership. The decision came just hours after the Turkish president introduced a quid pro quo, saying that Sweden's bid is only possible if Turkey gets to join the European Union. NTD Sam Wang has more.
On Monday, NATO chief Jens Stoltenberg said that Turkey has agreed to support Sweden's bid to join the military alliance. Turkish President Tayyip Erdogan will forward the request to the parliament as soon as possible. Stoltenberg described the move as a historic step, but added that a clear date for Stockholm's accession could not be given. Prior to the agreement, Erdogan brought up a new condition for Sweden's entry.
Come and open the way for Turkey's membership in the European Union. When you pave the way for Turkey, we'll pave the way for Sweden as we did for Finland.
Sweden applied for NATO membership last year, along with its neighbor Finland. This was shortly after Russia launched its full-scale invasion in Ukraine. But to get the green light to join NATO, all current members must unanimously agree. While Finland was let in back in April this year, Sweden's bid has been held up by Turkey's objection. The nation's leadership has suggested that Sweden was too lenient on groups that Turkey considers as national security threats. Similarly, Turkey has long desired to join the EU since 1987, but the possibility was taken off the table back in 2016, when the Turkish government launched a crackdown against its political opponents following a failed coup against Erdogan. Earlier today, NATO Secretary General Jens Stoltenberg expressed his support for Turkey's EU accession, but he also said,
it is important that we stand together in the fight against terrorism, but at the same time it's also important that we address the legitimate security concerns of all allies that want to see Sweden as a member of the alliance as soon as possible.
In recent months, Stockholm has rolled out new anti-terrorist legislation to meet Turkey's demand. Shortly before the summit, Erdogan said that Sweden must do more on this front to be allowed to join NATO. Aside from Turkey, Hungary is another NATO member that's holding back Sweden's bid. But Hungarian officials said that the nation won't be a hurdle if Turkey changes its mind. Sam Wang, NTD News.
And staying in Europe, President Biden saying publicly that the U.S. is low on artillery ammunition amid supporting Ukraine. Meanwhile, the leader of the Wagner group reportedly met with President Putin after the failed coup last month. NTD's Arian Pazdar reports.
President Biden spoke about U.S. military support for Ukraine in an interview with CNN, which aired on Sunday. Biden defended their decision to send ammunition for cluster bombs by saying that the U.S. is running low on other types of ammo. Watch.
They're running out of that ammunition, and we're low on it.
Many concluded that Biden revealed this information by accident, since it's confidential and adversaries around the world could see the interview. To explore this issue and more, I spoke with retired Army Colonel and author of The Nation Will Follow, John Mills.
Is that true? Is the U.S. really running out of ammunition?
Well, yes. I mean, we don't know the exact numbers. They're classified, but I have been on the Joint Staff at the Pentagon, the center of all of this information, and we watch very carefully what's called war reserve levels. You seek the signature of the president to approach or even breach that war reserve. So I am sure we are way past that at this point in time.
A White House official later corrected the statement, telling Fox News that the military has specific requirements for ammunition. Everything we send to Ukraine is in excess of that, so the U.S. is not running out of ammunition ourselves. A few days ago, the Biden administration announced that it will send ammunition for the controversial cluster bombs to Ukraine. Biden is currently in Europe, where he'll attend the annual NATO summit this week. Many European countries are opposed to using cluster bombs because they can leave behind undetonated munitions, which could later hurt civilians.
President Biden is meeting with NATO members this week. How do you think will they react to the U.S. probably sending those bombs to Ukraine?
Well, I double-checked 3 treaties. The cluster bomb treaty, just simply call it the cluster bomb treaty. We are not signatories. The United States is not a signatory to that. The mine treaty, the U.S. is not a signatory to the mine treaty. Chemical warfare, we are a signatory, and it's bad because we just got rid of our last chemical weapons when we don't know what China and Russia have.
Meanwhile, Russia on Monday said that the leader of the Wagner group met with President Putin just 5 days after the attempted coup last month. The apparent meeting comes as a surprise, as Putin had branded him a traitor and vowed harsh punishment. The criminal case against him on rebellion charges was later dropped. He's reportedly currently in Russia. Arian Pastar, NTD News.
And back in the U.S., the Department of Homeland Security has opened up a new way for immigrants to enter the United States legally. Critics of the new process say it allows migrants to cut in line in front of other applicants. NTD's Jason Perry has the details.
The Department of Homeland Security, or DHS, recently announced a new program that allows certain migrants with U.S. relatives to enter the U.S. legally. It will also allow them to work legally while waiting for their immigration visas. The U.S. family member needs to file Form I-130, also known as the Petition for Alien Relative, to begin the process. DHS says the new program, called Family Reunification Parole, or FRP, aims to promote family unity and provide legal avenues while reducing irregular migration.
just another example of desperation on the part of the Biden administration to move nationals of Central America and Colombia to the United States in the hopes that it will have fewer people entering this country illegally.
I spoke with Andrew Arthur of the Center for Immigration Studies, who pointed out something about the new process.
It allows nationals of Colombia, El Salvador, Guatemala, and Honduras to jump the line, to jump ahead of hundreds of thousands of other foreign nationals who are waiting in line to come to the United States, to live and work here even before they've received their visas.
This process falls under the existing authority granted by the Immigration and Nationality Act, which allows the Secretary of Homeland Security to temporarily parole non-citizens into the United States on a case-by-case basis. But is it really done on a case-by-case basis? This past May, shortly after this plan was introduced, the Biden administration said they intended to welcome as many as 100,000 people under the FRP processes.
If this is a case-by-case basis, then the term case-by-case basis has no meaning. They're simply, dropping a blanket on all of those pending visa beneficiaries abroad in those 4 countries and letting them into this country. That's not a case-by-case basis. Now, what they're going to say is, well, they still have to pass medical checks or something like that. That is the opposite of a case-by-case basis because you're only going to be excluding people on a case-by-case basis.
The latest data posted by DHS shows that in the month of May, over 204,000 illegal immigrants were encountered at the southwestern U.S. border. That's about 6,600 encounters per day. As the Biden administration faces scrutiny over its immigration policies, the impact of this program and its compliance with existing laws will be closely watched. Jason Perry, NTD News.
Next, an update on the government censorship lawsuit brought by the attorneys general from Missouri and Louisiana against the Biden administration. Today, a federal judge denied the Justice Department's request to temporarily block a ruling that places limits on the administration's contact with social media firms. U.S. District Judge Terry A. Doty issued the order last week, which blocks various Biden administration officials and government agencies, such as the DOJ and the FBI, from working with big tech firms to censor posts on social media. The Biden administration argued that the judge's order was too broad and that the limitations could hinder law enforcement activity online. Judge Doty responded today, writing that his order included exceptions for communications about cyber attacks, election interference, and national security threats. He also argued that the Republican attorneys general who brought the suit are most likely going to succeed in proving that the federal agencies and officials significantly encouraged, coerced, or jointly participated in allegedly suppressing social media posts that included information that was critical of COVID-19 vaccines or questioned the outcome of the 2020 presidential election. And on Capitol Hill, lawmakers are back with a full schedule planned. High-profile hearings and spending bills are top priorities, but there are some road bumps ahead. NTD's Melina Weisskopf has updates about what to expect in the People's House this week.
Lawmakers are returning from the July 4th recess with a lot of ground to cover. There's the high-interest hearings this week. The FBI Director Christopher Wray will testify to the Republican-led Judiciary Committee. Republicans are likely to grill him on what they describe as the politicization of the nation's most distinguished law enforcement agency. They're likely to grill him on questions related to the raid on Trump's Mar-a-Lago home, as well as documents pertaining to the Biden family's overseas business dealings. Then over on the financial services side, you have that committee prepping for hearings, 4 hearings this week, all on ESG. Then probably the most pressing on the list is for lawmakers to figure out a way to fund the government on time to avoid a government shutdown, which is particularly concerning right now because both the House and the Senate are on a collision course working within different budget caps. Then, of course, tied up in this, there's a national defense bill. Committees in both chambers did already pass their versions of the bill, roughly $880 billion, but the House bill attracted some criticism from Democrats. There were amendments in the House version of the bill that target cultural issues at the Pentagon, such as eliminating critical race theory and diversity, equity, and inclusion programs. It also aimed to aid service members who were kicked out for not taking the vaccine. And the White House has already sent a statement disapproving of these measures, along with others. Reporting from Washington, D.C., Melina Weisskopf, NTD News.
Coming up, tens of millions of Americans are under weather warnings. An extreme heat wave is hitting the Southwest while New England suffers from severe flooding. That and more after the break.
Did you know ESG is impacting every part of your life? From rising gas prices to global food shortages to out-of-control inflation, even losing your freedom of speech and being censored on the internet. It's all being driven by ESG ideology. Who's in control? What can you do about it? Find out in The Shadow State, the first documentary exposing ESG. The ESG movement of governments and corporations operates in the shadows. Only the light of truth can expose it. Watch The Shadow State documentary, streaming now.
Wow, it's so soft and smooth.
It's cool to the touch. How did you do that?
Well, we took MyPillow's patented fill and combined it with this new technology that we didn't have back then when I invented MyPillow to bring you the best pillow in history, MyPillow 2.0. Because of all of you, MyPillow 2.0 has been a huge success. And now we're bringing you our best-selling Go Anywhere MyPillows with the same temperature-regulating technology. Made with my patented adjustable fill and brand new cooling fabric, they're truly the next generation of MyPillow. So go to MyPillow.com or call the number on your screen. Use your promo code to save over 60% on our MyPillow 2.0 4-pack special. You'll get 2 MyPillows and 2 Go Anywhere MyPillows. Regular $259.92, now only $99.98. King size just $10 more. This is a limited time offer, so please order now.
Buying a house is complicated and confusing, especially now. That's why who you work with matters.
Together with HomeLight, we find solutions for every buyer. Our team helps you get the home you love every time.
My dad's name was David. He always talked about getting life insurance, and now it's too late.
No one was expecting my husband Dave to suffer from a heart attack. We didn't have life insurance. We thought we had more time.
Don't be Dave, and don't wait until it's too late to get the life insurance coverage you need. And if you don't have enough insurance to cover funeral costs, credit card debt, and other expenses, your family is going to get stuck with the bill. Call now to get affordable life insurance.
Just call 800-494-1562.
If you're over 50, you can't be turned down for this insurance, regardless of your health. Plus, there's no medical exam, no health questions. Your rate will never go up. Your coverage will never go down. And rates start as low as $5 a week. Remember, don't be Dave. Call now.
Call now. 800-494-1562.
Dangerous weather conditions are sweeping across the United States. Tens of millions of Americans are under heat warnings in the Southwest and Southeast, and millions more are under flood alerts in the Northeast.
According to the National Weather Service, extreme heat is returning to the southwestern United States. Around 42 million Americans are on alert for dangerous heat as of Monday. Parts of California, Nevada, and Arizona are under excessive heat warnings, while parts of Texas and Florida are under heat advisories.
Where we are partnering with, for example, Reliant Utilities and others, providing more air conditions, especially to seniors that do not have them. We open up, for example, well over 20 cooling centers all throughout the city of Houston and trying to create these lily pads throughout the city.
Phoenix is forecast to be the hottest city in the U.S., with temperatures expected to reach over 110 degrees for the next 2 weeks. The city could break the record for the most consecutive days above 110 as a result. Weather forecasters say the latest heat wave in the Southwest will last well into the week. Meanwhile, communities in the Northeast are dealing with flash floods. Forecasters say 11 million people are under flood alerts as of Monday afternoon. Roughly 9 inches, or an entire summer's worth of rain, fell in New York's Hudson Valley on Sunday. At least one person was killed. Orange County in upstate New York reported that a woman had drowned.
9 inches of rain in this community, that they're calling this a 1,000-year event. It's only the second time ever that the National Weather Service issued a flash flood emergency. The last time was Hurricane Ida.
Vermont declared a state of emergency over the floods, and authorities say they rescued 19 people as of Monday morning. According to FlightAware, hundreds of flights were canceled at Kennedy, LaGuardia, and Newark airports in the New York metro area, and more than 200 were canceled at Boston's Logan airport. Officials say the storm has already caused tens of millions of dollars in damage. More downpours in the region are expected, raising the potential for flash flooding. Reporting by Allison Lee, NTD News.
Concerning that, we'll keep you updated on that story. Over the weekend, a tragic plane accident occurred in Southern California, leaving behind a devastating scene. The crash claimed the lives of all 6 people on board. NTD's Christina Corona tells us more.
On Saturday, 6 people were killed outside of the French Valley Airport in Riverside County. The Cessna C-550 crashed into a field and burst into flames around 4:15 a.m. It was the second of 2 landing attempts that morning. Elliot Simpson, an investigator from the National Transportation Safety Board, shared more on the tragedy.
The pilot reported to air traffic control that he was going to perform a missed approach, which is generally happens when a pilot can't see the runway environment.
Air traffic control then gave clearance to the pilot to perform a public missed approach, then cleared the airplane to return the landing once again.
Airplane crashed about 500 feet short of runway 18, which was appeared to be the original intended landing runway. Debris field was about 200 feet long. Most of the airplane, with the exception of the tail, was consumed by fire. 6 people on board, and all were fatal.
Elliott said shortly before landing, the marine layer began to envelop the area with low ceilings and visibility.
It would have been half a mile of visibility, and 300 feet overcast is what the weather was. And that appeared to meet the minimums for that instrument approach.
Witnesses confirmed the dense fog that approached that morning.
It looked like a snow blanket right over the shrubbery right here. It's a natural preserve, lots of water underneath. And it reminds me, I'm from Michigan. It reminds me of being in a snow blizzard almost. That's how dense the fog was.
The plane had departed from Harry Reid International Airport in Las Vegas for the 45-minute flight to Marietta. The victims have been identified as Abigail Vargas, 33 of Marietta, Reese Lenders, 25 of Ranchos Palos Verdes, Manuel Vargas, 32 of Temecula, Lindsay Gleish, 31 of Huntington Beach, Elma Rossick, 51 of Temecula, and Ibrahim Rossick, 46 of Temecula. This is the second fatal crash within 4 days at the French Valley Airport. On July 4th, 1 man was killed and 3 people were injured when a single-engine Cessna 172 crashed shortly after takeoff. Christina Corona, NTD News, California.
Just tragic. Next, staying in California, a lawsuit against tech giant CISCO has been revived. The San Jose company allegedly helped China in persecuting a spiritual group, but it was dismissed nearly 10 years ago. Now, the judges are continuing the case.
According to the Ninth Circuit U.S. Court of Appeals, a lawsuit that accuses CISCO of helping the Chinese regime's violent persecution of Falun Gong can move forward to trial. Falun Gong is a faith group that's been heavily persecuted in China since 1999. Its adherents filed a lawsuit in 2011 against CISCO, along with its 2 former executives, longtime CEO John Chambers and CISCO's then Vice President for Greater China, Freddie Chung. The plaintiffs were 13 Chinese nationals and a U.S. citizen, Charles Li. The lawsuit alleges the firm supplied technology to help China's communist officials build a vast surveillance network to identify and track Falun Gong practitioners and facilitate their subsequent arrest and torture. In the filing on July 7th, the federal appellate court found the plaintiffs' allegations sufficient for the case to proceed, thus reversing a 2014 lower district court decision to dismiss the case. In a 2-1 opinion reinstating the suit, U.S. Circuit Judge Marsha Berzin wrote, We conclude that plaintiffs' allegations, accepted as true, are sufficient to state a plausible claim that CISCO provided essential technical assistance to the Dozheng of Falun Gong with awareness that the international law violations of torture, arbitrary detention, disappearance, and extrajudicial killing were substantially likely to take place. Dozheng is the Chinese Communist Party term referring to the violent political campaigns the regime instigates against perceived enemies. Ms. Berzon said that the company's actions, many of which took place on U.S. soil, constitute aiding and abetting the Chinese regime's abuses. The plaintiffs allege that CISCO marketed itself to target dissidents and became a facilitator of the regime's violent suppression of faith by designing and developing a comprehensive apparatus with U.S. technologies and talent in exchange for market access. The system the plaintiffs referred to is Golden Shield, the Chinese surveillance platform that's accessible nationwide in China. CISCO, they said, had designed, crafted, and given critical assistance to implement and fine-tune the Golden Shield project at a time when the regime was incapable of developing one on its own. The plaintiffs allege the resulting product was a surveillance system that can monitor Falun Gong adherents' internet activities in real time to identify, round up, and torture members of the religious group. It also builds detailed and constantly updated profiles of suspected and known Falun Gong adherents that Chinese security officers can retrieve anywhere in the country. They added that the information, including location, family, and contacts, aided the regime in rounding up adherents and coercing them to renounce their faith. Circuit Judge Morgan Christen, who dissented, said, "I see several sound reasons to decline to recognize a cause of action for aiding and abetting the acts alleged in plaintiff's complaint, and I am deeply concerned about the practical consequences of allowing plaintiffs' claims to go forward without input from the political branches." The plaintiff with U.S. citizenship, Charles Lee, said he was arrested in 2003 for practicing Falun Gong in China. Lee said he was beaten, deprived of sleep and food, and handcuffed in painful positions during his 3-year prison sentence. When he was finally released in 2006, he was also expelled from China. CISCO did not respond by press time for a comment.
An important case there. We'll be sure to keep you updated on that one. Next, popular artificial intelligence bot ChatGPT is being sued. Some big names in the entertainment industry are bringing a class action lawsuit against the company behind ChatGPT. How is it likely to play out? NTD's Business's Don Ma speaks with the patent professor.
So joining me is the patent professor, John Rizvi. He's a registered patent attorney and adjunct professor of patent law at Nova Southeastern Law School in Florida. So John, it seems like so many people right now are filing class action lawsuits against ChatGPT and OpenAI. I think the latest and most prominent being the stand-up comedian Sarah Silverman. There were a number of authors as well in the previous week. They're all suing OpenAI for using their content without permission to train their artificial intelligence language models. So, John, can you tell us if there's any merit to the suits?
Yeah, well, there certainly is. So this is not something I expect to be dismissed on like a summary judgment motion or anything like that. There's certainly merit. An owner of intellectual property, particularly copyrights, they have the right to determine who they give permission to for using that work, when they give permission, and the manner in which that work is used. So the central issue here is that these authors are claiming that the only way that ChatGPT is able to provide such a detailed summary of their books is if they have access to complete work. And of course, I think the case is going to turn on where ChatGPT is getting that information and what databases they're using. Because their claim is going to be like, hey, we're not going to the original work, we're simply accessing the internet database, but they're not revealing their sources, and that's problematic.
Isn't use of data from the public domain considered fair use?
So fair use is certainly a defense to copyright infringement. One of the major factors for fair use is whether the use is of a commercial intent or if it's of a nonprofit intent. So in the past, when there's a Supreme Court decided a case on Sony VHS cassettes and whether homeowners, individual consumers, had the right to record shows and watch them later on. And that was permitted under fair use. But a big factor was that the consumer was not going to sell or in any way profit from recording a TV show. They're going to record it and watch it themselves. It was used for time shifting, and there's no profit incentive. ChatGPT is certainly, that's not the case. They have models charging monthly fees, and they're valued, I believe, at the latest value is like $29 billion based on the profit that they're making. So it's going to be a stretch to qualify under fair use.
So then, by that logic, is OpenAI violating the rights of millions of internet users because it's using people's social media comments, posts, blog posts, etc.?
Yeah, in fact, it's been said that they may very well be the biggest copyright infringer in the history of the world. Of course, their strongest defense is going to be, we are not copying from the original work itself, but we're scraping internet databases on millions, billions of potential consumers and compiling something based on that, not a violation of the original author's work. I think the detail in the summary is going to be a big factor. And then in order to persuade, I think, anyone of their claim that they're not copying, they're going to have to reveal their methodology and their databases. And that, in effect, could be, that could be the death of OpenAI, because even if they win this case, if they reveal their methodology and their database, then they've essentially given away their proprietary edge. That's going to be the real competitive risk to ChatGPT, is how are they going to maintain their edge and be able to maintain their fees if they no longer can claim that they have a unique proprietary system for providing their answers.
All right, thank you so much for the discussion today, John. It was a pleasure speaking with you.
Terrific. Pleasure is all mine.
And next, Logan Paul's popular Prime Energy drink is in the crosshairs of Congress. Senator Chuck Schumer wants the FDA to investigate Prime, saying its marketing tactics are directed at young people. The drink has a lot of caffeine, which is not good for kids. Let's see that now.
Senator Chuck Schumer has asked the FDA to investigate Logan Paul's Prime Energy drink. In a press release, Senate Democrats said that Prime, one of the most in-demand drinks for kids, is, quote, actually a cauldron of caffeine. At around 200 milligrams per every 12 ounces, Schumer says it has more caffeine than a can of Coca-Cola, a Red Bull, and any cup of coffee.
There are side effects from caffeine, so things like increasing your heart rate, increasing your blood pressure. They increase diuresis, they increase your urination, so you can get increased risk of dehydration.
Rebecca Carl is a pediatrician from the American Academy of Pediatrics. She says these effects are stronger among children who are more sensitive. Caffeine can also give children headaches, interfere with their sleep, and make them less sensitive to being tired.
When it comes to kids, actually there is really no demonstrated safe amount of caffeine. So under 12, the American Academy of Pediatrics says no caffeine.
Lindsay Malone teaches nutrition at Case Western Reserve University. She says that for kids over 12 and under 18, a maximum of 100 milligrams is recommended. That's about 3 cans of Coca-Cola.
Prime Energy says that this drink is not for under 18s. It has a tremendous amount of caffeine. It has about twice as much caffeine as a Red Bull. But where do you find that kids shouldn't drink Prime Energy? In the fine print.
David Monahan is the campaign director at Fair Play, a nonprofit that wants to end marketing to children. Monahan says that saying the drink is for people 18 and over only in the fine print doesn't work. He says this is because Paul and KSI are blasting teens on social media that they should buy this drink.
They're out there on all the platforms where kids and teens are saying this drink is great. You'll be cool if you drink it. If you live an active lifestyle, you need it. You're going to be popular if you drink this drink.
Senator Schumer says that Prime's website features insufficient warnings about caffeine content, despite the eye-popping amount. He wants the FDA to investigate Prime's health claims, as well as the social media influencer-centric marketing style. Faye Quarter, NTD News.
Coming up, Treasury Secretary Janet Yellen says her visit to China was direct and productive. We have some takeaways from her 4-day trip. And we hear the story of a Romanian teacher who was wrongly imprisoned in China for 8 years. That and more after the break.
Hey, I told you enough of that.
But look, this is different. It's Ganjin World. Ganjing World. Family-friendly entertainment.
What if you could whiten your teeth by simply brushing your teeth? Now you can with Smile Actives, the teeth whitening breakthrough that safely gets your teeth white and keeps them white every day, just by brushing your teeth.
I never thought that whitening my teeth could be so easy. I just put the gel on the brush, the toothpaste on it, brush, and I can see my white teeth.
Simply add Smile Actives to any toothpaste and our patented PolyClean technology activates into a powerful microfoam that penetrates into the enamel surface to safely lift and remove stains.
You need a simple way to whiten your teeth. Without strips, without trays, without going to the dentist. And it was about time that a product was developed that you would be able to do that with just brushing.
And now, Smile Actives is even better with new Pro Whitening Gel with 33% greater whitening power, clinically shown to whiten teeth faster, up to 8 shades. 100% of users saw whiter teeth. On food stains, coffee and wine stains, even on veneers, crowns, and dentures.
I eat the blueberries, I drink the coffee, and I know that Smile Actives will keep my teeth white every day.
If you could use something so easy like Smile Actives to take yellow teeth to white teeth, why wouldn't you?
Why spend hundreds of dollars for whitening treatments at the dentist when now you can whiten your teeth with new Smile Actives Pro Whitening Gel every time you brush your teeth? Call or go to smileactives.com and for a limited time get new Pro Whitening Gel for just $24.95. Order in the next 5 minutes and buy one get one absolutely free for just $24.95. That's 2 for 1 and save 58%. We'll even include free shipping. Get your teeth whiter guaranteed or return it within 60 days for your money back.
I smile every day now.
The difference is literally night and day.
So now I'm always smiling, always choosing, because now my teeth are much whiter.
This offer is not available in stores, so call or click now before the special buy one get one free offer goes away.
Regardless of where you are on your path to retirement, you can still take charge of your financial future today. Visit aceyourretirement.org and answer a few questions from Avo, your friendly digital retirement coach, for free tips, resources, and advice customized for your situation to help you feel confident and prepared for retirement. Retirement looks different for everyone. Make sure you're prepared for your financial future at aceyourretirement.org.
U.S. Treasury Secretary Janet Yellen is back from her 4-day trip to China. Yellen says she told Chinese officials the U.S. won't allow its national security to be compromised, even at the cost of economic interests. NTD's Jeremy Sandberg has more on Yellen's visit to Beijing.
Yellen says talks in Beijing were direct and productive. Although the trip didn't result in any major breakthrough between the two countries, Yellen says she was able to press her Chinese counterparts about the regime's unfair economic practices.
Fair treatment is critical so American firms and workers compete on a level playing field and benefit economically from trade and investment with China and the huge market it presents for American goods and services. I also expressed my worries about a recent uptick in coercive actions against American firms.
The visit came just days after China retaliated in a tech war with the U.S. by announcing restrictions on exports of 2 strategic materials needed to make semiconductors, solar panels, and electric vehicles. Yellen says she defended U.S. measures on trade that China claims is hampering its tech industries and assured officials that the U.S. is not looking to decouple from China. She called the idea disastrous for both countries, destabilizing for the world, and virtually impossible to undertake.
We want a dynamic and healthy global economy that is open, free, and fair.
The Treasury Secretary says the U.S. means to diversify critical supply chains and will continue to take necessary targeted actions to protect its national interests and those of its allies.
I feel confident that we will have more frequent and regular communication.
The Commission on the Theft of American Intellectual Property estimated in 2017 that the U.S. economy suffers an annual loss of up to $6 billion due to the Chinese regime's intellectual property theft each year. Jeremy Sandberg, NTD News.
And over in China, 6 people were killed in a reported stabbing incident outside a kindergarten. Chinese authorities said the attack took place this morning in a town in southern China's Guangdong province. Chinese state media cited witnesses saying casualties include 1 teacher, 2 parents, and 3 children. Police arrested the suspect, a 25-year-old man, shortly after. The case is now under investigation, and police are still confirming the victims' identities. China has faced a spate of multiple stabbings in recent years, often targeting children. This is despite strict controls on guns in the country. And next, the story of a Romanian teacher who was wrongly imprisoned in China for 8 years. He spoke to Lee Hall, host of British Thought Leaders.
What was life like inside a Chinese prison?
Well, there are 2 parts. The first part, like I just mentioned, is the detention house. Basically, is the place where you have to wait to get sentenced. And in China, this period can take several years. Usually, it takes about 2 years. It's very lucky if you get there with just 1 year. Usually, we have to wait for 2 full years just to appear before a judge. Nobody said you're guilty of anything. It's just that one police officer that grabbed you and threw you in there, and then that's it. During those 2 years, you're just thrown into this cage with several other people, usually 10 to 12 people in one single cage, and the cage is only 12 square meters. So about 1 square meter per person, and you can't talk to anyone. At least I couldn't talk to anyone. Very seldomly I could perhaps see a Pakistani or an Iranian man that spoke some English. Usually it's just Chinese people that are specifically sent there so that you would have no one to consult with, no one to speak to, and that's terrible, because it doesn't matter what tribulation you're going through, but if you have someone to sort of share that with, it becomes easier. But everything that happened in this particular cage and in this particular period of time was specifically designed so as to wear you down.
So you couldn't communicate with anyone outside?
No, not really. You can't write to anyone. You can't call. You can't contact anyone. You're completely removed from the world. You're completely removed and set down in a different reality. This is their reality, the reality of the Communist Party, and the way its justice system works. I don't even know if it's proper to call it a justice system. It's very interesting how the system works, because I was very lucky to not have been married or to not have had kids. I met a lot of people there that had wives and children, and some of them were even used against them. Yeah. Because the only thing that matters is confession. Evidence is not necessary. And if they do come up with some evidence, it's all fabricated. It's just some statements from some guys that you've never seen and you will never see in your life. And they say that, you did this and you did that, and that's automatically accepted.
And next, over in Europe, the Netherlands Prime Minister Mark Rutte will be resigning and leaving politics. That's after his government collapsed over immigration policy. Rutte announced his surprise decision at a parliamentary debate in The Hague earlier today. He said he thinks it's the right time to step down, and that he was leaving, quote, with a lot of emotion and with a lot of mixed feelings. The Dutch Prime Minister noted that there are differing opinions about immigration policy within his 4-party coalition government. Rutte has been in power since 2010 and is Europe's second longest serving leader. His government will tender its resignation to the Dutch king, and new elections will be held in the fall. And coming up, what an attorney wants you to know in the case of a $150 million court order as the case continues about potential danger on the road. And many volunteers have spent their weekend helping veterans in Northern California. NTD spoke with a variety of vendors and heard why they offered free services at a county veteran one-stop shop. These stories and more here on NTD News.
It's just clear as day. The media, whether it's broadcast, cable, or print media, has become extremely biased. And I started looking online for alternative ways to get information. And I saw an ad for a free trial. And I looked at it and I said, Epoch Times. I mean, come on, this is end of days type of stuff. I mean, what are they going to be talking about here? And I said, well, it's a free trial. Let me dig in. Is it giving me both sides? Is it giving me an objective point of view here? I have looked for opportunities to see where they might be biased, and I don't find it. It has given me a level of trust in media that I didn't think I'd ever get back. I love the Epoch Times because it has renewed my faith in the idea that a reliable, responsible, non-biased source of information is available. And I can say that I love it because of that.
I don't think that many kids in my son's school even do it.
He makes fun of his friend who vapes.
He would never try it.
She's into soccer.
She's on the honor roll.
She's just not the type.
No way.
No way.
No way.
No way, my kid would never vape.
Get your head out of the cloud. Today, nearly 8,000 kids will start vaping. Maybe even yours. Learn about the dangers at talkaboutvaping.org.
Stay tuned to get 2 rolls of alien tape free. You wouldn't stick your mother-in-law on the wall, but you could with alien tape. It just sticks. Just peel and stick to make anything stay in place quick. Brick, pavers, marble, tile, plastic, even leather. Nothing works better than alien tape. You wouldn't stick your fishbowl on a moving car, but you could with alien tape. The secret is nano-stick technology that grabs and locks on to secure one side of the surface to the other. Alien tape secures in seconds, then twist, pull, and rinse to reuse. Call or go online to get your first roll of alien tape for just $19.99, plus shipping and processing. But to make this deal really stick, we'll give you 2 more rolls absolutely free. You get 3 rolls of alien tape for one low price. Order now.
To order, call 1-800-490-1364 or go to tryalientape.com. So call 1-800-490-1364 or order online at tryalientape.com.
Attorneys for a man caught in a crash 10 years ago in Cyprus are warning of a motorcycle model they say is still defective and on the road here in America. They say the Suzuki GS XR 600 motorcycle and other models with the same brake system are currently endangering drivers, pedestrians, and anyone else nearby. That's despite a recall and more than $150 million in damages that the company has been ordered to pay. Suzuki is appealing the ruling, and earlier today I reached out to them, though I didn't hear back. But I did speak with one of the plaintiff's attorneys in this case, Gabe Houston, from the trial lab, for an update. Gabe, welcome to our show. This case is ongoing. To begin with, could you give us an overview of the case?
Sure. So in 2004, Suzuki figured out they had a defect with their brake, and it's really the investigation over the next 10 years or so where they sort of they figured out the problem, concealed, and then decided how much they really wanted to reveal about a brake defect that affects not just the rider riding the motorcycle, but everybody on the street sharing the roads with that dangerous product.
And briefly, what was the issue with the defect?
So ultimately, it involves the front brake master cylinder of a motorcycle, which provides 80% of the stopping power for a motorcycle. And the braking system is really the only safety mechanism or system on a motorcycle. It had a design defect and a manufacturing defect. Ultimately, it caused corrosion inside this brake. And Suzuki, through their recall, attempted to only address one of those, which was the design defect, and failed to address the manufacturing defect as well as one of the parts inside. Ultimately, what the end result is, there is still corrosion being caused inside this brake that provides 80% of the braking power and keeps the bike under control, especially at a time with sudden emergency braking that happens on motorcycles quite often. My law firm, the Trial Lab, has been engaged in pursuing litigation against Suzuki to this day. Suzuki still presents a problem, an ongoing danger to this day after the recall in new motorcycles manufactured. And we've seen that through various cases we have, and we're continuing to litigate here 10 years after the recall was announced.
Suzuki was ordered to pay $150 million in punitive damages, but instead the case is heading back to court. Suzuki was found to be 100% responsible for the crash in this case. So what's the argument behind their appeal?
Well, it's a good question. The argument is that they just don't like the outcome at this point. They think it's too large of an award against the corporation. They wanted it to be based simply and solely on the damages to the client itself, really not understanding what punitive damages against a corporation really are intended to do, and that is to punish and deter future bad conduct. And that's really what we did in this case. We presented a case to try and get them to prevent their bad conduct in the future that they pursued throughout their investigation and really in their announcement of the recall in this case. And I think in this case, we have a pretty good leg to stand on that's going to hold up. The judgment should hold up as the jury awarded in California.
All right. Thank you so much for this update. Gabe Houston, appreciate your time.
Thanks for having me.
And staying in California, when it comes to the nation's heroes, communities love showing support to our veterans. This was the case this past weekend in Silicon Valley. NTD's David Lamb was on site at a county fairground.
We just had the 4th of July where people celebrated America's freedom. Now over this weekend, a lot of volunteers and veterans came by to this one-stop shop for giving back to the community and veterans that need it.
The Veterans Stand Down event was held at the Santa Clara County Fairgrounds in San Jose over the July 8th weekend. And these are free services for veterans, ranging from haircuts, food, and farmers market to professional services and resources.
I was stung by some insect, and so I had to have that treated here on site. And so I was able to talk to one of the volunteer doctors who basically said that the swelling will go away. It is very helpful, especially if you're like right out of the military and maybe you moved into this area and you're not sure of how to navigate in the area, or you're not sure about services involved. This is a perfect venue to come to find those types of needs.
One of those services is haircuts. Veronica Berries says the Veterans Affairs Department contacted her and her team to help out at the event, where each barber served about 10 haircuts per day.
So I'm a retired police officer, so I was on the force for a little bit, almost close to 14 years. And one of the biggest things when I got medically retired, I was concerned with, I've always done things for the community. How am I going to give back? How am I going to give back? So whenever they contact us to do anything like this, I'm so 100% for it, because it's like my way of still contributing, back to the community, back to the society.
There were also mobile medical and dental services.
We usually go out to different places in the Bay Area, helping with give medical care for homeless veterans. Today we're just giving medical care to the veterans that need it. We're establishing care. I love it. I've been doing this for at least 3 years now. I come from a family with a lot of military backgrounds.
This is the county's first stand-down event, made possible through a collaboration between many vendors and agencies. Stand-downs are typically 1 to 3 day events where U.S. Department of Veterans Affairs staff and volunteers participate. In the military, the term stand down refers to a period of relaxation after a state of alert.
Now, it has been a weekend of giving for this 2-day event. One of the volunteers told me he brought his son to be able to see what's going on here because he said, no matter where you are, it's important to give back. David Lamb, NTD News, California.
And if you have any news tips or feedback for our show, you can email us at eveningnews@ntd.com. That's all for today's news. Thanks for tuning in. I'm Stephanie Cox. Good night.
Thanks for watching us on YouTube. Did you know YouTube only keeps selective videos on its platform? So if you want to make sure you get the full picture, just subscribe to our newsletter. Go to newsletter.ntd.com and sign up. It's free.